Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be breaking down what seems to be a simple topic, but it really isn't, and really isn't very well understood, is the difference between an asset versus a liability. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because a lot of the times people misclassify these concepts and really don't understand the true meaning of an asset and a liability, only because the world around us has truly changed. And I'll explain what I mean. And we're really in a time now in 2024 where we have transformed fully from a 2D mindset to a 3D mindset. Back in the time of yesteryear, our parents and so on, people were very clear as to what an asset and a liability once was. And a lot of the times, now, assets can now be liabilities, and liabilities can truly be assets in the right circumstance. So instead of me speaking in parables, let me go ahead and be very clear as to what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and break these down. Let's use, for example, a pet. Sorry about that sound. A house pet. Let's say a dog, okay? Or a hamster, whatever you want to say. I'll write the word pet here, okay? Is it an asset or is it a liability? And it's not so much depending on what it is, but it's really more of the circumstance that it is in. And I'll explain. If I have a pet and I'm just feeding that pet, walking that pet, and it provides me no benefit, then in the financial terms and in common terms, it is definitely a liability, right? Now, some people may say, well, I love my pet. It's like my family member. It's like my child, etc. Doesn't matter. It's still a liability. Somebody can be a family member, but still be a liability. Only cost you, right? They don't give anything back. But that same pet can also be an asset. If you take that pet, put it on YouTube, make videos about the pet becomes a recognized superstar in the pet world, and it makes you money, that pet can become an asset. It depends on the person that withholds the object that determines if it is an asset or if it's a liability. Let's use another example. Let's use a Lamborghini, for instance. Okay, so I'll write a Lambo. You guys have seen my purchase in Tesla shares. I could have bought a Lambo with those Tesla shares, right? Is that an asset or is it a liability? Imagine tomorrow I go buy a Lamborghini, right? I sell all my Tesla stock. I go buy a Lamborghini, right? At a loss, by the way, and I go buy a Lamborghini. Is it an asset or is it a liability? It depends on me and my circumstance. See, once again, the generations of yesteryear will mostly say it is purely a liability. It costs you gas money, costs you insurance, right? I have to pay for insurance, I have to pay for gas. Maybe even it costs me headaches. I have to worry about, the rims and the tires being stolen. Here in New York City, that is a thing. If you have a supercar, it's not uncommon where you park your supercar, outside of a building, right in the middle of Manhattan. And you come out, the supercar is literally on bricks, on cinder blocks, missing its wheels. That has happened many times. And really, it happens every single day. So it's a liability in terms of cost. It's a headache. What else can it be? Well, it can be an asset, depending on how I use it. If I take that Lamborghini, record videos in it, show people my lifestyle, and it brings eyeballs in, right? And people look at me and say, you know what? This guy's a legitimate individual because he can afford a Lamborghini. He's teaching us how to make money, and he has a Lamborghini. This guy is, I trust this person more. Or let's say I preach to people that, buying a Lamborghini is an asset and you can buy it and it could go up in value. And here's my Lamborghini and this and that. People might look at me in a positive way because I'm a Lamborghini, let's say, arbitrage individual. There are people that do that, by the way. It's called supercar arbitrage. I have a person that I know personally. His name is Pejman Gadimi. He is, I just spoke a different language, but anyways, his name is Pejman Gadimi, and he is a arbitragee, whatever you want to call it, of supercars. He'll buy a car. He knows that it's rare. It will wait a few months, few years, use the car, drive the car, and sell it for more than what he paid for it. So for example, Aston Martin Vantage or Vanquish S, he'll buy that car, drive 2 to 5 to 10,000 miles, and that car will, not 10,000, 10,000 is a little steep, but you get the point. Let's say 2 to 5,000 miles he'll put on it. He bought it at 2,000 miles. It has 7,000 on the odometer. He'll sell it. Let's say he bought it for 219,000. He'll sell it for 247,000. That's an example, right, of it being an asset. What's another way of it being an asset? Well, to create credibility. You guys know that a lot of people out there will say, yeah, you're selling these businesses, you're teaching us business, but where's your credibility? How do we know you're the real deal? That's an example. A lot of people use supercars in their ads, for example. These are all different ways that the same thing that is once a liability to an individual can also be an asset. So once again, it's not about the item. It's about the individual and the circumstance it is placed in. Let's use something that a lot of people would say is an asset. Let's use books, okay? In the business world, a lot of people talk about reading books. Reading books are great. Let's just say you have a book. A lot of people would say that's an asset. It provides knowledge, right? But if you buy the book and you do nothing with it, all it does is take up shelf space. Is it really an asset? It's not an asset. It's a liability. You just paid $14 for something that did absolutely nothing. So once again, in this case, the difference between assets and liabilities is not what it normally seems. You can take a liability and you can turn it into an asset. You can take an asset and turn it into a liability. Let's use another example that is, once again, a little more obscure, but let's say your home. Your home, okay? Let's take your emotions out of it for a second. A lot of people say, well, if I don't have my house, where do I live? I live on the streets. My home is an asset. That is not true. If you are paying bills for your home, you're living in your home, but it's not producing anything back to you, that is still a liability by definition. Now, some liabilities have a purpose. That does not make it an asset. That does not transfer what it is. But notice you can actually shift an asset from a liability to a asset. How do you do that? Okay? How do you do that? Well, if you look at a 1040 tax return, right? If you use your home as a home office, you can deduct things like your utility costs. You can deduct things like the home insurance. You can deduct things if it's used for a business purpose. If you have a room in the house, for example, and you pay a mortgage on the house, you can deduct the fraction of the space of that home, that office space that you're using for the home against the mortgage as a tax deduction. These are things that turn your home into an asset, or at least decrease the level at which it is a liability and turns it more into something that can produce income for you. So a lot of the times, right, we all look at assets the same way. Is it producing an income directly? Like, for example, they'll say, my pet is an asset because I love my pet. That's not an asset. It's by definition a liability. It doesn't mean it's not a good thing, but by definition it is a liability. If I have a child, a son or a daughter, right, who's nothing but problematic, right? Let's say they're on drugs, they have issues, right, that they're working with, and I have to continually be a parent to them, even if they're 25, 26, 30 years old, that is a liability by definition. There is no way on earth that it is an asset. We have to be realistic with the things we say here, right? An asset and a liability are things that depend on you and how they're placed in your life, right? To some person, something might be an asset. To some person, that same thing might be a liability. It just depends on the scenario of that individual. And it's very important to understand, right, what is an asset and a liability for you. The other day, we spoke about real estate, and we talked about how important it is to understand that real estate doesn't actually make you money. And it's really a source of protection. It is not a money maker. In fact, there's really only one event in time where money is being made from real estate, which, once again, if you want to find out what that is, click on the link in the description or just simply go to the YouTube channel. The videos are there. For some people, buying real estate, getting in the real estate business is purely a liability. They don't make enough money to be involved in the business, to be, a real estate investor. Once again, purely a liability, a waste of time, if you will. And if they involve their time in something else, they could be much more profitable. These are the differences between assets and liabilities. Take the emotion out of it and truly assess if something is an asset or a liability. A lot of times, unfortunately, if somebody's a little bit older in age, they cannot really, they've gone too far down the path where they cannot really control if something is an asset or liability for them. If you're still young and you're listening, you can absolutely have control over things like this. For example, like I said, the people in your life, the things that you pay for, the way that your life is managed. For some people, their job, the thing that produces them income, could be a liability, depending on the nature of their job, the risk of the job, the amount they're getting paid, the amount of mental, I guess you could say, what's the right word? Mental prison they're putting themselves in with their job. Could be a liability. But it also could be an asset. Depends on the individual and, once again, how it's being used. So hopefully this video was not only enjoyed but understood, and I'll talk to you guys later. This is the assets versus liabilities conversation, the age-old conversation. Hopefully you guys helped this out, or this helped you out, and peace out, bye. All right, talk to you soon.